We're still using Moshe Rabbeinu as our role model for leadership. We spoke of his humility. We spoke of his sense of responsibility. Next thing I'd like to discuss is integrity. It says a few parts. Very interesting. We're discussing this in the week of the Parsha of Korach, who accused Moshe Rabbeinu of actually having contrived himself this concept of kahuna and giving his brother Aaron the role of the Kohen Gadol. Korach said that was not really what Hashem had in mind. Ki kol heda kulam kadoshim. The entire congregation is holy. V'socham Hashem. Hashem is at the center of it all. Umadua tisnasu al kal Hashem. There is absolutely no room for one who is greater than others when it comes to the service of Hashem. Of Moshe Rabbeinu's integrity, we find first that the Torah refers to Moshe as Eved Hashem. He is the servant of Hashem. Servant means he has almost no identity of his own. He sees himself only as a servant of the one he is serving. The Torah also uses the term B'chol beisi ne'emanhu. He's reliable. He's trustworthy. He is true to the cause. What that means is that he has, once again, what he's all about is the cause, that which is right, and nothing else. No ulterior motives. We already spoke about in Anava, no personal ambition. His decisions are all based on the cause and nothing else. One does not compromise on the cause for some other reason. All too often, leaders start off with the clarity of their mission, but the mission gets clouded. Sometimes just to cut corners because it's difficult. In other situations, because although it all began with pure idealism, it then did get confused with something personal. If not ambition, at least something personal in terms of relating to other people. At the time Rav Yosef Karo was writing his Beit Yosef and eventually the Shulchan Aruch, there was another Jew who had the same idea in mind. The Ramah, Moshe, the Silish of Krakow. They were unaware of one another. Obviously, one was in Poland, the other in Egypt. Rabbi Yosef Karo managed to actually print. It was one of the first books actually printed in the lifetime of its author. He managed to print the Beit Yosef. It was being sold, quite expensive. And Rav Moshe Isserlish, the Ramah, actually discovers it one day. And he's in the middle of writing his work. And he writes in his introduction, he writes exactly where he was up to. And he said, I examined the work, the Beit Yosef, and came to the conclusion that it was superior to mine. So I scrapped my plans. And instead, he put out footnotes where he disagreed. He wrote the Darkei Moshe, which is footnotes to the Beit Yosef, where he disagreed. Although he had invested so much in his own work, he writes this in his introduction. Try to imagine yourself in such a situation. Our creative minds would definitely have come up with all sorts of reasons why Rabbi Yosef Karo's work was inferior. He's invested so much time in this. How could there not be a need for it? Instead, he does not compromise on his own integrity, remains objective, and is capable of saying this work is better than mine. And because of that, today we have the Shulchan Aruch with the Ramaz additions there. Shulchan Aruch, the set table, and the Ramaz, what's called the Mapah, the tablecloth. And between the two of them, we have that one universal work that is generally followed by almost all of the observant Jewish nations, Sephardim and Ashkenazim alike, because it's all in one work. You believe that something's right, you believe that something's necessary, just because another human being also feels that way and is making headway. It doesn't mean you stray from what is right. It doesn't mean you change your course. It doesn't mean you find some reason to discredit him. You are true to the cause, period. That's part one. There's a second part to integrity. And this is one of the sharpest differences between Moshe Rabbeinu and your typical leader. When Moshe Rabbeinu was first approached by Hashem to take the Jews out of Egypt, among the reasons why he sees himself unqualified for the job is because he is, as he says himself, aral sfosayim. He had a speech defect. In fact, when he went to Paro, Aaron ochicha yeh neviecha, Aaron was the spokesman. Aaron was the one that had to actually do the speaking to Paro because Moshe Rabbeinu would not have gotten anywhere with him. Apparently, it would not have been so pleasant to hear him out. Leadership typically is about charisma. Some charismatic leader that incites. Of all people, Moshe Rabbeinu, the one that brought Torah to the Jewish people, he cannot be that charismatic figure. Why is that? Leadership has to bring the message to the people in an unadulterated form. In charisma, it is the personality of the leader and the delivery that is doing a good part of the job. What that means is that deep down, you may or may not be convinced by the information, by the argument. You're probably being convinced by the delivery and the persona, and that's scary. Especially when it comes to Torah and Torah values. When we look at great Jewish leaders over the generations, only a small percentage were great orators. They weren't necessarily eloquent. Often they didn't assume their leadership positions within the nation till they were old, and it was even difficult to hear what they were saying. Some spoke in a monotone. Charisma? Not quite. And these are the people that led, that not only made decisions, but convinced. It was the content, it was the message. It was the profundity of the argument, not the presentation. This is something that is so special about the Jewish nation. Our greatest leaders over the generations were so profound. They were so sharp in their understanding of what truth is and how to apply it. But their presentation was often very poor. I remember it was striking when I came to the Mir. The Rosh Yeshiva then was Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, Zichrono Livracha. He was actually very eloquent. But there was one problem. He had had a stroke many years before, and his tongue was paralyzed. It took many sessions to start understanding, just being able to hear what he was saying, just to catch the words. Whatever he said, his tongue was in the way. You had to persevere. It took time till you could understand it. And even when you could, it was still rather uncomfortable. I cannot believe that anyone with his presentation could have drawn the kinds of crowds and recognition that he did outside of the Jewish people. I don't think so. I doubt it. Listen, I haven't studied it. I'd be surprised that young people had the patience Come on, we were American kids. We had the patience to sit there and try to figure out what he was saying. The message was profound. See, he was eloquent, but you couldn't hear the words. You had to figure out what he was actually saying. There's another Rosh Yeshiva, not in the Mir, although he came from the Mir back in Europe. Also known for his depth. Had many students. Had a terrible stammer. Took a while till he got a sentence out of his mouth. His students ate his words. It has never been the quality of the presentation. I am not saying that you shouldn't improve on your teaching or speaking skills. There's no reason why you have to make people struggle to understand you. There's no mitzvah to do that. These people couldn't help it. I don't think any great Jewish leader deliberately gave a boring presentation, although many spoke in a monotone. But one thing's clear. Your major efforts have to be invested in the integrity of the message, the purity of the message, the profundity of the message. The presentation is secondary. If the accent is on the presentation, who knows if what you're saying is true? Come on, there are these fast talkers out there that convince anyone of anything. I don't know if you've experienced this. I've heard people talk, and they're out there. Where their presentation is so convincing. But if you only think about what they're saying, it's nonsense. Make sure that everything you're saying is true. You believe in it. It makes sense to you. If you really want to educate a crowd and inspire a crowd, the most important ingredient is your own clarity and conviction that this is true. You've got to understand it well, not superficially. It's got to make so much sense to you. If you lack either in the clarity or in the conviction that this is true, and you're selling it on the basis of your presentation, that's not what the Torah considers leadership. Back to Korach. We're told that he got himself a following with what Rashi refers to as leitzanus. Leitzan is a clown. Leitzanus is scorn. What did he do? He said, what if you have a talus that is made of techeles? Does it need tzitzis? Right? Talus shekula techeles. Wow. What a convincing argument. Of course it doesn't need tzitzis, right? So the Jewish nation, we're all leaders. Why do we need a leader? A talus that's made of tcheles needs tzitzis. It was wrong. But it sounded so good. It went on. If you have a room that is full of sforim, does it need a mezuzah? What do you mean? There's Torah all over the place. Why do you need a little thing in the corner of the door there? Yeah, you're right. But it's wrong. It's just untrue. It's so convincing. It sounds so right. The Torah refers to this, the Chazal refer to this as being a clown. There are so many clowns out there that have such followings. Don't be one of them. So yes, it's important to make your presentation more pleasant. It should be more appealing, but don't overdo it. And certainly, what you really invest in is clarity of the message, not the delivery. Although we do offer a little bit of speaker training here. You spend day and night studying Torah, the content, not the delivery. And by the way, in Jewish leadership, we have never seen that the leaders of the Jewish people did speaker training. That was not what was on their minds. It's the integrity of the message. The piercing truth that they're sharing with you. So yes, integrity is such an important element in leadership. So you got to work on your own integrity and your honesty. We find in the Gemara in Bava Metzia gives us a definition of a Talmid Chacham. What is that? One who always tells the truth, with 3 exceptions that are given there, where the halacha says that they're not supposed to tell the truth, to avoid arrogance, or to avoid violating tznius, a lack of modesty, both usages of the word. But a Talmid Chacham, a Torah scholar, and Rambam brings this in his description of how one who is Chacham, one who is wiser, we don't just measure him on the basis of what he knows, but also on the basis of his character. And he uses this as a prime example. It's one who tells the truth. How do you reach the point where your message is pure, where you don't go astray and you're not leading anyone else astray? It has to begin with your own appreciation of truth. You don't just lie when it's convenient, where you have to live up to, take responsibility for your own mistakes, where you can say I was wrong rather than come up with creative explanations for what you did. The Torah goes out of its way to point out the mistakes of the greatest there ever were. Mistakes of the Avos of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Mistakes of Moshe Rabbeinu. Why does it do that? So there are some fringe benefits. It's reassuring to know that you can be Moshe Rabbeinu even though you made a mistake. So you don't give up. Because we've made so many mistakes. At a certain point, we probably give up on ourselves. No. But more importantly, the fact that they made mistakes and lived up to their mistakes, took responsibility for them. Without that kind of integrity, you can't trust somebody. Share with you a funny story. My entry into the world of Aish Torah began actually by teaching in our first seminary for women, IAT. It was built by and run by Rabbis and Weimer, Reb Noach's Rebbitzin. My first position there was teaching halacha, which was most of what I taught there. You know, the women ask questions all the time. I remember they asked me one question, and I said I didn't know the answer. And they said on the spot, they were so appreciative. They said, you know, you seem to be claiming that you know everything, and we know that's not possible. So we were doubting whether or not you were telling us the truth. When you said you didn't know something, that was so reassuring. And that's a very important lesson. People are afraid. People are afraid they don't know enough to go and teach others, go and affect others. Maybe someone's going to ask a question I won't know the answer to. If anyone asks you a question you don't know the answer to, you know what the best answer is? I don't know. I don't know. Gemara says, "Lamad l'shon chalomar." Teach yourself to say, "Any day, I don't know." Honesty is so important. Honesty is so important. So if you're honest with regard to your own life and your interaction with others, then there's something to talk about. Then we can build on that and speak of integrity, of the message you're giving across, and your ability really to be an Eved Hashem, a servant of Hashem. If you have a hard time taking responsibility for your actions, and again, we are geniuses when it comes to justifying what we do. If you're self-righteous and can do no wrong, forget leadership. Leadership needs integrity, and that includes knowing that you make mistakes and taking responsibility for them. So it's integrity of the message, not straying from it, never losing focus, and making sure that what you are giving over to people is the message. And that the strength of your argument is based on the true strength of the argument and not on the delivery. Leaders are not based on charisma. What makes leaders is that they have clear, rational messages that are right. So know what you're fighting for. Believe in what you're fighting for. Know clearly what you're fighting for. And don't stray and don't get confused.